Well, Joshua 1:9 is Rachel's verse, and it is a warrior's verse. You make no mistake about this, people. This verse should be for all Christians. But the problem is most Christians don't live a life that requires this verse. And I find that sad. Be strong and of good courage. Be not afraid, neither be thou dismayed, for the Lord thy God is with thee whithersoever thou goest. Do you like the translation?
Thank you. It's just the first one I memorized it in.
Now, I have a confession for you. I did not consciously take the King James and put it there. Now, I happen to know she likes that verse in King James. But I did it. I did not consciously say, oh, Rachel likes this in King James. I just liked it in King James. So I use King James. I bounce between, usually I have 4 translations I use the most, and really it's 3. A fourth one that I read, but I seldom quote. But I have 3 that I quote from a lot. And 3 I quote from a lot. 1 I read a lot but don't quote from. And 1 that I read a lot and quote from occasionally, but I follow it a lot. If you want to hear about translations, we'll do that another day. But here, going back to this, too many Christians live a safe life. What I call a safe life in a spiritual sense. I'm talking about the spiritual safe, not the physical safe. Christians go to church, and we live our life day to day, and we do our best not to upset anyone. We think that's being a good Christian. We don't talk about God at work because that's just not done. You don't talk about religion at work. That's what they say. I always did, never had problems with it. I think if you're obnoxious about your religion, then you have problems. But if it's a part of your life, you know, and you learn how to shut up when people get bored, it works fine. We don't talk about God in our social life for the same reason. We're afraid we might offend somebody. Well, I'm not going to talk about God today because Mike might get offended. And too many Christians think like that. And so they don't need Joshua 1:9. But let's take the context here. Joshua is being installed as the leader of the nation of Israel. And this verse is part of what God is telling him. And we can understand God's admonitions here. He says, be strong, be courageous, don't be afraid, don't be discouraged. God will be with you everywhere you go. Wow. So leaders of God's people need this verse and what it teaches. You know, Rachel, I called a friend of mine after our Costco trip. I said, well, Rachel dared to go out in public with me today. And he laughed and he said, it's always a new experience. Because I can walk up to a greeter and in 30 seconds I can tell them I'm a Christian or I believe in God or something to that effect. I don't need an intro. I do it naturally. Why? Because I've been practicing this, people. I'm a leader of God's people. I've got to do what I preach or I ain't no good. And now Rachel's been with me in restaurants. Sometimes I don't even witness to people per se. Like at Little Philly, we're getting ready to leave. A guy's wearing a yellow lanyard with black stripe printing on it. And I stopped and I said, oh, I was just looking. I thought maybe you were wearing police tape around your neck and I was worried about you. Okay? I say something stupid, but you know what? He's going to remember me. And next time I see him, I got an opportunity to talk to him. Now, I haven't always been what I am. I have learned. That's what being a leader is. And a leader of God's people needs this verse and what it teaches. A leader means you need to be strong even when you don't feel strong. I think of the song Twilight Paris sang, "The Warrior is a Child." I can hardly listen to that song without crying because sometimes that's exactly how I feel. And yet, you can't express that to most people. Because people are looking to you to draw their strength, even when you don't feel like being a leader. Being a leader means you've got to be courageous, because sometimes you're required to make a tough decision. You know, a leader in combat has to be willing to order one of their people to die. Whether it's a movie like U-571, was that the movie? Where the Americans captured the German sub and he had to order the one guy to go down in the water and turn that valve to save everyone's life, and he knew that man was going to die. Or like on Star Trek, they have the Kobayashi Maru scenario, and the only way to win is to order your people to their death. Unless you're Captain Kirk and you reprogram the computer, but okay. Being a leader means there isn't always an easy way out. Leading people means you will be attacked. Do you know I get attacked just for what I post on Facebook? Because people say, oh, you're just boasting. No, I'm trying to show people that you can live a godly life.
Amen. And be blessed.
And if somebody thinks that I'm all full of myself, then they don't know me anyway. Yeah, I got an ego as big as all outdoors. But my ego is big enough, and my understanding of my relationship with God, my job to God's people, is such that I don't care if you attack me. I don't feel I have to respond and defend myself. I don't usually do that. Once in a while. But I do all of this to teach. I didn't talk about Friday night and how much money I gave so that people would be impressed with how godly I am. Now, I had a lady comment about that. She's actually a cousin, married to one of my second cousins. But she's an admirer. And she lives way on the East Coast. I've never met her. She expressed her admiration for me. Well, I appreciate that. Is why I did it. I wanted other people to think, wow, he gives, and he always needs money, and he gives, and he always needs money. It's an example, people. Leading people means you will be attacked and often unjustly. Even by those you're trying to help. A leader can become discouraged. You're trying to help somebody and they kick you in the teeth. Being a leader means you lead the people that aren't very lovable, aren't very leadable, even when you don't feel like it. So leaders of God's people need to remember, first and foremost, that God will be with you always. Even to the ends of Nebraska. Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged. For the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. I threw it in NIV just for fun.